that all guests on 95.7 The Game appear on the River Islands guest line. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands, River Islands in Lathrop? Let's go out to him. His name is Lawrence Krueger. He's live. 49ers camp today. I have to give you credit, Larry. I thought that was a very, very adept question. When you said to John Lynch, hey, last year you promised that Bosa wouldn't be traded. Will you make the same promise with Brandon Aiyuk? That's professional journalism right there, Larry.
Yep. Nobody says a pain in the ass like Larry Kreuger at a press conference.
Well, actually, I think there's some other dudes in that room that the Niners think are a bigger pain in the rear than you. Yeah. I actually do.
That's probably true. It's a tough room to get the chief pain in the butt. But yeah, I mean, and he said there are no absolutes, which basically means that even though there is no deadline, and he was asked, you guys have a deadline? He said, no, my deadline to get this done was yesterday, so he's trying to get it done as soon as possible. Even though there are no deadlines and they're not listing any deadlines, they have a deadline. And at some point, they're going to either get this done or they're going to pivot and they're going to trade Brandon Aiyuk. And I just don't know what that is. That the 27th at the cut down day when they're putting the roster together? Is that week 2? Is that the trade deadline? I don't know. But there's no doubt that last year it was like, we will not be trading Nick Bosa. This year, we won't go that far.
Right. So you don't think that it's possible that they do neither and just have him play on the 5th-year option?
Well, it's possible he'll play on the 5th-year option, yeah. There's a lot of results that could happen. They could play on the 5th-year option. He could play on the 5th-year option and then get franchise tagged. He'd play on the 5th-year option, get franchise tagged, and get traded. He could play on the 5th-year option, and they could agree to an extension in the midst of the year, which I kind of think is what's going to happen, to be honest. I mean, the question is tomorrow, is he going to do the hold in? Like today, I think we realized he's not going to do the hold out. He showed up. He was there. Tomorrow, we're going to find out if he does the hold in, which is I'm here, I'm at meetings, I'm not incurring thousands of dollars of fines, but I'm not putting or risking my body until my contract extension gets done. That will be one interesting move. The Niners expect him to practice tomorrow. So that's going to be major news tomorrow, whether or not he practices. And, and that will determine kind of where this thing goes, really. I mean, if he doesn't practice, then he's holding in. And obviously they're trying to get that deal done. If he practices, then, maybe that's a sign of good faith and they get it done quicker. I'm not sure exactly how to read the tea leaves on it, but I definitely think tomorrow is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, Larry Krueger with us, Niners camp today. Larry, I'm intrigued by, I think the same way Dibs was, that you just said that you could see this turning into a trade. To me, going into this year, there's no way in hell the Niners are trading Brandon Aiyuk unless they are 100% sure that Ricky Pearsall is the real deal. And I don't know how you can know that until at least halfway through the year.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, there's also Jacob Cowing, who I think is going to be significant. But, yeah, you don't know what those guys are. I mean, in an ideal world, you don't make any major decisions on any of these guys until the end of the year. That's why I think the Niners are so open-minded to the 5th-year option. I mean, I'd much rather make this decision on Aiyuk next year, even if it costs me a few dollars, because I've got certainty on what Debo is. I know what Purdy is more. I've got a better idea what Cowing is, Pearsall. If Cowing and Pearsall are the next Randy Moss and Jerry Rice, then you don't want Brandon Aiyuk. But if those guys are both hurt and not very good, then you absolutely have to have Brandon Aiyuk. So, I mean, it's the full gamut of potential options.
Which is why I think that they might kick the can further down the road. And how has this gone traditionally, Larry, with 49ers who are, quote-unquote, forced to play under the 5th-year option? Is there usually some trouble with that, some backlash?
That's a good question. I've never heard of anybody having any real problem, but this has been such a public demand for the extension, and I think we're all kind of expecting the players, Brandon, the media, everybody's expecting an extension, and if one is not forthcoming, I think that will be I mean, obviously it'll be interesting. I expect Brandon Aiyuk will be a pro. I mean, I have no indications, guys, from him that he would be anything but a total pro. And that means show up, ball out, play hard, and get his money down the road. But not everybody in the NFL has that ethic. I think he does. So I think that's the road he's going down. But the other guys, he only has to play 6 games. That's the magic number for the year to accrue. So does he play 6 games, and if he doesn't get his money, hold out then? Or does he hold out until he gets his money? Or does he not show up until week 11? Because that's really when the year will accrue. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how Aiyuk plays his hand of cards, if he has any cards to play, really.
Larry, what about some other stuff? I mean, it's been revealed that Dre Greenlaw is at minimum going to miss multiple games, which means I don't know what the Niners can realistically expect from him at all year long. Like, what are they going to do next to Fred Warner this year?
Devondre Campbell is going to be the replacement. I mean, Greenlaw tore the Achilles, and he did it in the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was, we think of football as being in January, December. That was February 11th or whatever. He's not. If Greenlaw's back before Thanksgiving, I'd be shocked, totally shocked. I mean, that would be the fastest healing ever for a ruptured Achilles tendon. So I think it's Devondre Campbell. And I would say the other thing, keep an eye on D. Winters and Jalen Graham. I mean, Fred Warner told us that he thought Winters was having the best offseason of any player. And I'll tell you right now, Graham is a player. And I saw what he did last year in the preseason. I'm really excited to see what those two guys have.
Do you think that the Niners are going to be better up front than they have been in the past with the additions of Floyd and Collins and a little bit more with Gross Matos and some other depth pieces?
Dibs, Malik Collins is a big question. It's like, is it a lateral move from Armstead to Malik Collins? Is it a bad downgrade? Are you upgrading? I mean, he looks good in some of these, Twitter videos. I've seen him, working out, and his stop and start looks good. He looks like he's working hard. But I mean, that's not football. That's just running around in the off season. So I think that's a big one. How good's Jordan Elliott? How good's Malik Collins? How much do they miss Eric Armstead? How much do they miss Dre Greenlaw? Just as far as the big question is run D. They didn't stop the run last year. There's a team went to the Super Bowl. They got gashed in the preseason against the run, got gashed in the playoffs against the run, and still almost won the Super Bowl. And then lost Greenlaw, Armstead, and possibly Hufanga. Arguably, their 3 best run defenders on all 3 levels of the D. So the run D, I think, is a major question coming into the year.
Larry Krueger, who was out at Niners camp opening up earlier today, joining us here on 95.7 The Game. Larry, what was your sense of another big question that I know got asked of a lot of guys today, which is, how do you get back on the horse, man? Like, after what just happened last year, how do you get back to the starting blocks and not just get emotionally overwhelmed by that idea?
Well, I mean, there were guys, and we've heard it not just today. I mean, Jair Brown the other day said that, it took him a long time and that he felt like his body was still not over the pounding that it took from the year. I mean, they played a long year, and you're playing these 20-game seasons. If you do this back to back to back to back, like the Niners have done, that means there's guys that have played almost a whole extra season over the course of 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, it starts to have there's an effect, an impact of all those extra football games. As far as the emotional part of it, today we talked to Kittle and Bosa. I mean, Bosa is just, this guy lives to train. I mean, I can't even tell you how ripped he was. I mean, he's just ridiculous. Bosa is like in the best shape I've ever seen in my life. And then Kittle is just, Kittle's just determined. He's determined to get, he said he's equally determined as he was, the time before to get back to the Super Bowl, and he looks determined. And, he's approaching 30, so that he's starting to hit the pinnacle of his career.
Brock Purdy gets his first real offseason and his first real camp as a starter, offset by now greater expectations for Purdy. How do you size him up coming into his first real camp healthy as a starter?
Well, he's 100% healthy and he's strong. He's worked on his strength and he's worked on his flexibility and quickness. He feels like he's got a good plan. just from talking to him a little bit during the last OTAs, it was pretty clear that he knew like intricate details about Jacob Cowing's like route running style. And I mean, it was clear from just a couple of answers that, those guys have done a lot of reps on the field. I mean, Shanahan made the point today, Dibs. He said, last year we had the film work and then we had no field work. This year you're getting the film work and the field work, but where it's really paying off is the rhythm and the connection to these young receivers. And like you could really see it in that last practice before they broke 40 days ago. Purdy and Pearsall, and fans are going to see it in the preseason right away. And if you go to camp, you're going to see it. Purdy to Pearsall is a connection that is going to be something, because I mean, you can already tell Brock and him have repped it. A lot of timing routes. I mean, Purdy to Pearsall is going to be a hard thing to stop.
Well, fans are going to see it, but they're not going to see it this week.
Right.
Like how big of a deal is, because hamstring injuries for receivers, my gosh, that's not a great way to start here. And I know that was revealed today that that's what Ricky's got. So what's the concern level there?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, for some guys, they pull a hamstring and they're out 3 months, and other guys, it nags them in the first week. They get over it, and suddenly they play a full season with like a full schedule. So it's like, oh yeah, that guy had nagging hamstring in August. So it's really guy to guy. I mean, it's hard to say. I'll say this though. I mean, this guy's been in the blue jersey the entire OTAs. He's not, I mean, and one of the big questions I have is just, can he take a hit? And then after he takes a hit, can he still make those plays in the middle of the field? And he's not the biggest guy. So the fact that he's already kind of getting a little dinged up and missing time is not good, but it's also not a nightmare either. I mean, it's precautionary. It's early, I'm sure. And they're just, they got a deep group of receivers, and why, you get this guy blows out his hamstring and now it's half a season. So I'm sure they're just being extra careful early.
My favorite part of a July conversation with Larry Krueger is the randomness of the Krueger camp crush. Tell me who you got your eyes on, Larry, as camp gets started. Throw out a name that no one's heard of. Get ahead of the curve. It's Larry time.
I'm going to go with Tanner Mordecai, the quarterback. I kind of like the Tanner Mordecai, and I'll give you one other, Mason Pline, the converted basketball player. I mean, some guys. I mean, the most players, you got to watch the film, right? You got to watch the film and to see if they're any good. But if I just told you this Mason Pline, this guy's a basketball player who has like an above the rim, Division II, but like at Division II, the guy looks like Aaron Gordon. He's reverse jamming and he's, double reverses. I mean, he's got an above the rim game. He's 6'8". He's got 10.5-inch hands, and he's a mechanical engineering major. And his college coach did an interview with Guy Haberman and said he's one of the toughest players he's ever coached. I mean, just on that alone, you'd be very curious. This kid is guy to watch this summer, Mason Pline.
So good. I'll never forget our Segun Alube segment. God, that thing killed.
He's still in the league, man.
Darn right he is.
Don't you? Segun Alube to you.
I
He's
mean,
still out there.
Larry,
and if his family's out there, you know what? We're big fans.
Love the Alubies, all of them.
I know you ended up going off on Mason Pline, but you started the answer with Tanner Mordecai, and I'm on to you, dude. No, but I'm on to you. You can't just go to a Kyle Shanahan team and keep picking the newest little QB that no one's heard of. And then when he plays well, you're like, see, I told you. I mean, haven't we figured that out, that all the quarterbacks play well under Kyle Shanahan?
Well, there's no question. But, it's funny. I talked to Brian Griese. And, guys, you know what? Brian Griese had a big hand in Brock Purdy, right? And Brian Griese has kind of a little bit of a – he's got a little bit of an eye for this. I mean, you can kind of tell. And we did the interview. This was a few weeks ago. And he said that Luke Fickell is his buddy, and that Fickell, the Wisconsin coach, told him of all the players that he had in this draft. And he had a bunch. I mean, he had Bortolini, he had Braylon Allen, others, that that Mordecai was the guy that he would bang the table for, I should say, to NFL teams. So he believes in him. And he's got 4.46 speed, and he's pretty accurate, and he's pretty smart. I kind of like Tanner Mordecai. I guess it's also I'm not a big fan of the other guys.
Yeah, but how the hell are we ever going to even know this to be true? Like, Brock Purdy's established now. We're never going to see this guy, so you're just going to be right because you can't be proven wrong.
Well, no, there's this thing called the preseason. You know, we can watch him lead. I bet you he will play. He will play well in the preseason.
All right, that's fine.
And if he plays, here's the thing that's going to be really interesting. If he plays really well after the Niners drafted Brock Purdy, that probably means he's not going to get through waivers because some other team's going to be smart enough to be like, oh, wait a second, these guys found Brock Purdy, and now this guy Mordecai looks good in the preseason. Now we'll pick him up. So they may have to use a roster spot on him if he looks really good.
Do you think the Giants should sell?
Yeah, because, I mean, here's the thing. They have a team in Baltimore and a team in the Yankees that have some really premier prospects. I would not be selling Snell and Chapman for nothing, but you've got a couple guys there. I mean, Blake Snell is going to have a huge second half, and I think everybody in baseball understands that. So he's really valuable. And then Chapman, the way he plays defense, you know, when you don't have a good defensive third baseman, you're like, man, Matt Chapman is out there. The Yankees would love to have Chapman, I'm sure. And they've got Jason Dominguez, and the Orioles had this kid Basallo in the Futures game who's awesome. You got to the Giants have got to find some big-time, middle-of-the-order bat. Now, you can do it in free agency, but they haven't been able to do it. You can draft your own, but it takes a lot of time. You can make trades and trade away, you know, pitching or prospects. And this is the year to do that, I think. So there's Andrew Vaughn, there's Luis Robert, there's Polar Bear, there's Randy Arozarena, there's Jazz Chisholm, there's a bunch of guys that are out there. And this might be the year to, you know, maybe if you're not going to use Marco Luciano, maybe it's time to move off of Marco Luciano or Eldridge or one of these guys and get a proven, you know, otherwise I don't know that if I'm Farhan, is Farhan going to be the GM when these guys finally come to the big leagues and realize their potentials? Probably not. So if I was him, I might want to speed it up a little bit and see if I could get somebody who could help you sooner. Because they're only 3 games out of the wild card. I mean, if they got into a hot 6 weeks, they could make the playoffs and the guy could save his gig. But I think he's got to make the playoffs to keep his job. I really do.
Yeah, updating those standings. They're now 4 games out of the wild card after last night's wonderful experience.
Well, in that case, they're done. They need to sell.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Much better.
Yeah, thank you. That's the answer we're looking for. Hey, before you go, did you catch on the TK pod that Kyle Shanahan admitted that he offered Bill Belichick a job on the defensive side as an assistant this year, but Belichick said no?
No, I did not see that.
Yes.
That makes me feel so good because I put my neck out on the line.
I know, but I remember because I ripped you for your take, but your take was that it was going to happen, not that it was going to be offered, Larry.
Well, I mean, it goes to show, though, I do know the team that I cover. I knew the Niners would be interested. I knew they would go after him. Shanahan loves Belichick. And you know what? I mean, if you ask me, what's Bill Belichick want? If Bill Belichick actually wants to be a coach again of a good team, I think his better situation would have been the defensive czar on a Niner team that wins 3 rings in the next 5 years under Shanahan. And then as opposed to sitting in some studio, listening to some Bleacher Report donkey tell you his opinions, and you're like, yeah, that's a good call, Matt. You know, I don't know.
This entire conversation was worth it just for you to say Bleacher Report donkey.
Really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that is. Okay.
I'll get salty on you.
I'm aware. Thank you, Lawrence. Do you like being called Lawrence?
Gentlemen, I do. You know, it reminds me of my late mother. I'm now going to go say a prayer about her because she used to call me Lawrence. And I appreciate that you brought that up. And now I'm going to go have a moment.
Okay. Go have a moment. We will too. Thank you, sir.
See you guys. Good to talk to you.
Yep. We'll see you out there tomorrow. Yep.